Well, yesterday, a good number of the community and some of our guests went down and attended the Sister City March, coinciding with the March on Washington yesterday. And so Venerable asked some of us who went if we would like to sort of share our experience and what we kind of garnered from our experience. So I wanted to share mine today. Well, one of the things that I don't know. I don't know if I want to call it a tender point in my life here at the Abbey, but over the years, there's been what I perceive to be a misconception that monastics in general live in solitude and unencumbered by the problems and challenges and the difficulties of the world. That we don't want to be part of the struggles of the world, and that, some people might even assume that we're choosing to escape from it somehow beyond that, somehow, above that. And we've actually had some interesting occurrences in the past 13 years where people have sort of shown up here on our front door with suitcases in hand, with some kind of romantic notions that by coming here they're going to be able to, I don't know what the romantic notion is, to escape, to be able to leave their lives and the troubles behind. So this has always been somewhat of a, if I could call a bristling point in my mind when over the years I've heard that somewhat stereotype. Now, I have to say that we spend our lives almost full-time up here on this hill because we're really trying to practice and transform our minds in an attempt to integrate the Buddhist teachings and to do with a lot, with not so much worldly distractions. So we have an incredibly conducive environment to be able to practice and to cultivate our minds. However, at the same time, I really want to try from my own side to dispel this thinking, at least in regards to this community. I wouldn't say that there are some monastic communities in this world that contemplation and really withdrawing from the world in deep solitude is a core, fundamental aspect of their practice, and I think it's absolutely fabulous, and I think it helps to really create peace in a chaotic world from their side. But when there are important social, educational, environmental, political, and spiritual issues at stake, we as a Sangha with Venerable's guidance and example choose to have our voices heard as we deem appropriate. There are circumstances where we really choose not to participate, and other times that we do. That there are values that we cherish as a spiritual community and as being part of the human family of living beings, and that there are really appropriate occasions where we get to really clearly speak and to be present when we perceive those values that we feel are really guaranteed and entitled for all living beings or being endangered in any way. So my motivation for going yesterday was to physically and mentally and spiritually support a very fundamental Buddhist truth that we try to practice and really keep in our minds all day, that all living beings deserve to be happy and have the causes for it, that beings deserve to be free of suffering and the causes of it, and that all living beings deserve to be treated with equal care and concern irregardless of who they are. So this is kind of a fundamental practice. And when I looked at what was going to happen tomorrow, I really felt that, and that whatever endeavors that in our country and world that support that for all living beings, I mean, it gets my attention. It causes me to take notice. And so, and that a very fundamental criteria, which also the march yesterday seemed to be eliciting, was that it has to be with the voice and presence of a kind and informed reasoning without violence or hostility. So we're just not going to join any kind of march or protest just to have the experience. But there's a very serious criteria that it's got to be done from a place of kindness and compassion and with some logic and some practicality to it and some reasoning with a good heart. And so the march yesterday really fulfilled that need for me, to the need for participation, for really a shared responsibility as part of the human family and as part of the family of living beings. And it really helped to deepen my practice as well yesterday. So there were a number of things that moved me. And I will think about this for quite some time. The general feeling was that there was a very kind and warm friendliness and genuine care at the energy of the group. I mean, there were 5,000 people, and for quite some time, there were a few thousand of us confined in a pretty close quarters, waiting in line, waiting for the doors to open, getting through security. So there was a little bit of jostling and tight fit and stuff. And just the general care and gentleness and warmth that everybody had towards each other was quite palpable. You know, everybody was kind of at ease. Everybody's sort of taking things in stride. And it sort of set the tone of the march. I mean, it really just set the tone right off the bat. I was impressed by the diversity of the group. There was a lot of ages, people of different types of racial backgrounds, ethnicities, perhaps some different social, economic backgrounds. I mean, it seemed to be a very nice compilation of a good representation, I would think, of the city of Spokane. And I was delighted to see many, many men participating in this too. We keep remembering that, you know, there's also the men of our country that are very much caring about the rights of women as well. And before the march, there was a rally where people who represented organizations and groups, either personally experiencing challenges and concerns due to who they were or their situation, or organizations that really advocate and support folks who are in challenging situations. They were there to share their concerns, their commitments, their story. And some of them were so transparent, some of them were so personal, some of them were so touching. And I wanted to just give a few examples of the ones that kind of really went right into my heart. So the first one was a woman whose name was Cindy. She was now a staff member at the Hope House. And I got the impression, maybe I heard her say that she used to be someone who was a client there, and that as years went on, she was able to really join the staff and be part of the advocacy. And she described under no uncertain terms the incredible world of a homeless woman. How dangerous, incredibly dangerous it is just by being a woman on the streets. So she went into some pretty direct things about the amounts of beatings and rapes and intimidations, and how the environment, just being outside, how hard it is for women, particularly if they have children with them. The other thing that was very wonderful to hear, that unlike the stereotypes that we generally have about the homeless, is that she said that at Hope House there are a lot of bright women trying to earn degrees in the middle of this very challenging situation, talented women trying to raise families, trying to work a steady job, and due to some sort of whatever the misfortune was, they found themselves out on the streets. So it's not like there's nothing going on in these women's lives. They're doing every day attempts to bring themselves back up into this kind of autonomy and freedom that they lost due to some circumstances that were really overwhelming. And that the courage, their strength in the middle of this great adversity. And to really touch in with, because she said that, is that these women and these circumstances are not that far away from where we are. You know, we think that homeless people are way over there with all of these circumstances, and all the rest of us, with all of our good fortune, are over here. That line there, that space, there's a whole lot narrower than we think, as given by the fact that there are these incredibly talented, bright women that have had something happen in their lives that have thrown them into this condition. There was a daughter of immigrants in central Washington, which is a huge agricultural area of this state, of this country. They grow grapes and apples and fruit up in the middle of Washington. Huge migrant workers, immigration families up there working the agricultural system, being so much a part of the causes and conditions on why the state of Washington exports so much incredible fruit. So she's the daughter of a migrant family, and that her parents were working 2 or 3 jobs. Her father was working at 2 or 3 jobs and then trying to learn English at night for the sole purpose of bringing his family out of poverty, to really give the children the opportunity that he really foresaw in his immigration to America, that he would be able to supply for his children. And the hurdles and the obstacles and the bureaucracy that they have to deal with when their intention is really to become upstanding, good American citizens that can really thrive in this country. And then there was an 85-year-old woman named Sally, who's been demonstrating and marching for equal human rights for 50 years. And on one hand, she was so impassioned, this little bent over woman with a red glove on her hand, and just this voice with a lot of power behind it, saying how far we've come due to the courage of millions of women over the past 50 years. And at the same time being exasperated and almost in disbelief that now at 85 years of age, she's still fighting for the same basic rights that she was fighting for 50 years ago. That is, although there's been progress, there's still this inordinate discrimination for women as far as access to a lot of things in the country. And the end of that, which I also took right into my heart, which has really got me impassioned now, is that I appreciate the speakers at the end of the rally clearly challenging the participants of this march, all of us, that after the march, we don't just go home and say that was great and that's over and go on with living our lives. I mean, she was like, don't you dare go home and say, wow, that was great, I had a blast. She said, we really want we want you to engage, we want you to give a helping hand, we want you to walk your talk. Step into the practice of benefiting others in a tangible, practical, committed way. Because if you want this place to change, you have to be part of the change you want to see. She was just so adamant about it and just called us on this, rah-rah, good feeling kind of day. Says, don't you dare go home and forget about this. So, finally, what I love, so that was kind of all built up inside the mind before we even took to the streets. So there was just this enlivening, this genuine wanting to commit to making this happen for each other. And as Dan Rather said, is that he said that this whole change is going to be fueled by a fervent energy bubbling from the grassroots rather than from the top down. And that's what I really heard over and over again in the rally yesterday. Finally, through the whole day, we kind of went as a little family, so we stuck together. So there's this group of maroon kind of walking around in coordinated fashion somewhat. And so people we were noticed. You couldn't miss us, actually. And the whole time, people would come up to us and say, wow, who are you guys? Who are you people? Where did you come from? Or they'd say, are you from the Abbey? Or it's the Abbey. Over and over again, people were just wanting to know who we were and why we were there. And so many times people wanted to talk to us, and what they said, which just went right in so deeply, is they said, thank you for coming. We appreciate and are grateful for your presence here today. It means a lot to us over and over again. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. We're so glad you're here. And for me, that's why we go. That's why we participate. Because people count on us that we get to integrate the Buddhist teachings deeply into our hearts and minds. We try to practice bodhicitta, try to make it real in our minds. And then we see that what we do here at the Abbey, as well as what everybody was doing that day and everybody that's doing out there, that we do it to affect the change that we want to see. That was such a crucial piece, is that this community has an effect. That what we do, the outreach that we commit to, the sharings, the participations. There was an incredible representation of our meditation class at UU. There were a lot of people out there yesterday, and they were just so overjoyed to see us. So what I really took away from it is it's not that the Buddhist teachings are not just going on the inside, but may we be able to really manifest it in an outwardly manifestation with a lot of wisdom and practicality and good wishes. And I really went away from it feeling very, very inspired. So that's just kind of my experience, and I'm committed to not making sure it just doesn't leave the door there yesterday, and I've got some ideas about what I can do.